Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, October 30th, 2020. Passing the fair tax will make politicians focus on what's really important. On November 3rd, we will be electing the President, Vice President, and members of the Senate and the House. According to OpenSecrets.org, nearly $11 billion will have been spent on this election. Now, the compensation for most senators and representatives is $174,000 a year. Now, the Speaker of the House receives a salary of $223,500. The President Pro Tem of the Senate, along with the majority and minority leaders in both the House and Senate, receive a salary of $193,400. The President receives $400,000, and the Vice President's salary is $230,700. Now, NBC posted this list of the 9 most expensive Senate races this year. Number 1 is Maine, $25.6 million spent. Number 2 is North Carolina, $20.9 million. Number 3, Iowa, $13.3 million. Michigan's number 4 at $13 million. Kentucky is number 5, $12.4 million. Number 6 is Georgia's special election for the seat vacated by former Senator Johnny Isakson. That weighs in at $10.1 million. Number 7 is Arizona at $9.3 million. Alabama is number 8, $6.1 million. And Colorado is number 9 at $5.4 million. Now, on average, $20,484,171 is spent on the congressional and presidential races combined. Now, the majority of that is spent in the presidential race, but that is still a huge number. But note that in both Maine and North Carolina, spending on the Senate races alone is higher than the combined average. Now, many people contribute money to a candidate because they strongly believe in that candidate's position on the issues. However, most of the money is coming from contributors who have a more self-serving interest at heart. They think they stand to profit if the side they are contributing to wins. And this has been true ever since the first contested presidential election in 1796. Now let's look at the unnecessary tax debate distractions that avoid real issues. Now, if you listen to the rhetoric and watch the ads, there's a lot of attention given to the federal tax proposals favored by one side or the other. Now, some politicians promise that if we vote for them, they will lower our federal taxes. Now, others say they're going to raise taxes, but only on a small group of people, and the rest of us will not be affected. Now, of course, federal tax policy is important to all of us. Since we can only support our families on what's left over after the government extracts its share of our income, we have to be concerned about how big that government share is going to be. We also know that the income payroll tax system can be changed at any time. A business or personal decision that makes sense today can become a terrible decision next year because the rules changed in the middle of the game. Now, this is what politicians love about the income payroll tax system. They don't have to actually change anything in order to profit. They can just hint at either offering or taking away a tax break for a special interest, and the money comes flowing in. Now, of course, when they do provide a tax break for one group, the rest of us have to make up the difference. Now, while this may be a great system for the politicians, the ruling class, and their minions in the swamp, it's a horrible deal for the rest of us. It's past time that we, the people, rise up and demand that the income payroll tax system be replaced by the fair tax. We all know that when the fair tax is enacted, the economy will dramatically improve for everyone. Better and higher paying jobs will be created. U.S. manufacturing will dramatically increase. All Americans will know the cost of the federal government. And you'll get all of your money, not just what's left over after the government helps itself to a big chunk of it. Your own spending decisions, not some politician's whim, determines how much federal tax you pay. The IRS is abolished, no more tax returns, no more audits. Every legal household gets a guaranteed tax refund every month. Plus, any change favoring a special interest will be apparent to everyone, and any change to the fair tax rate will apply to all and be apparent to all. Now, while these are huge benefits, there's yet another one. The politicians will have to address issues that are actually important to our very survival. Now, most of us agree that our federal government should provide for our defense, maintain the federal judiciary, collect customs duties and manage the ports of entry, deliver the mail, negotiate international treaties, protect our borders and set immigration policy, determine the federal government's role in health care, education, communication, internet regulation, and a myriad of other areas. Now, obviously, there can be valid disagreements on how each of the above things should be done, but isn't this really what the candidates should be debating? Isn't this more important than keeping a terrible and corrupt income payroll tax system that only benefits the ruling class and their minions in Congress and the swamp? In conclusion, a corrupt regime always tries to get its subjects to focus on other issues, not their corruption. The Romans did it with games and food for the populace. Other regimes have used war to mobilize people and distract them. We have a corrupt regime, the ruling class in the swamp, that is constantly trying to direct our attention away from their corruption. One of the most effective tools is keeping us focused on our own pocketbooks. They know that for many people, even a relatively small reduction in their income could be catastrophic. And the income payroll tax system is the perfect tool with which to keep people worrying about how much of our money the government's going to confiscate. Now, that tool goes away when the fair tax becomes law. The first step in eliminating corruption is recognizing the corruption. And when people are no longer distracted by threats to their pocketbooks, we will more easily notice what the swamp and the ruling class have been up to and demand a change. Benjamin Franklin was a significant figure in the success of our battle for independence from England. He also participated in the convention that drafted the U.S. Constitution. Now, today, passions are high, and people on both sides of the political spectrum seek to suppress speech that expresses an opposing opinion. Freedom of speech was one of the primary reasons that Franklin and others were willing to risk everything to fight England. We should remember these words from Franklin. Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. The Constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself. In free governments, the rulers are the servants and the people their superiors and sovereigns. Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become more corrupt and vicious, they have more of a need for masters. And history affords us many instances of the ruin of states. The ordaining of laws in favor of one part of the nation to the prejudice and oppression of another is certainly the most erroneous and mistaken policy. An equal dispensation of protection, rights, privileges, and advantages is what every part is entitled to and ought to enjoy. Now, as we look at taking our country back from the corruptors, we should remember the words of our former First Lady, Michelle Obama. You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once, but don't ever underestimate the importance that you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to FAIRtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under How It Works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.